Good morning. Thank you, Timo, for inviting me to give this talk. And thank you, Jiryu, for sitting so close in case something bad happens up here. I think that's part of the abbot's job, is to catch. So thank you. My name is Mary Stares. My Dharma name is Onryu My Dharma name is Onryu Soin, and I stumble on that because my second name was recently changed during a ceremony called Dharma transmission. The first name was given to me by Arlene Luke, who is a long-term resident at Green Gulch. Some of you would know her, probably. And that name means gentle dragon. The second name, Soen, is 2 syllables, 1 syllable each from Ed Sadazan's name, which is Inzan Rinzo. And so I feel that I carry both of those teachers in my heart, and I wish to express gratitude to them for all the years of patience and direction they've given me. I've been in and out in many different positions at all 3 temples of San Francisco Zen Center. And currently I find myself working on the projects called Enso Village and Enso Verde, which some of you may know of. It's a senior living community that has been built. The one at Enso Village, it opened in November to residents. And the Enso Verde project, we're thinking it will open sometime in 2028. And it's in the development stage. So one of the things that I find by working in this job and also studying the Dharma for all these years is that for me, it's an encouragement to think about and try to understand what reality is. I thought I'd think about that out loud with you today. So it sounds so simple, reality. And I think for me anyway, it's like many of these concepts or these ideas that are brought forth as I study the Dharma. It's like, it should be so simple. It sounds so easy. However, there are so many layers to the experience of reality, our experience of reality, that for me anyway, it's taken decades now of practice and of consideration. This past week, I was reading one of Suzuki Roshi's essays, and I read it a number of times, and I have read it before, but just like much Dharma that I read, or if I'm listening to a Dharma talk, I'll read it, and then a few years later, I'll pick it up, and I'll be like, I never saw this before. I never put this idea together. I never thought about this. So for me, reality, the experience of reality, is an ongoing knot, let's say. And the reason why it's coming up for me a lot right now is because the elders at Enso Village are realizing that they have moved into a place for the last time. And unlike the excitement of going to college, leaving your home and meeting new friends and having so many possibilities and so much life in front of you, they're going through this really interesting, or my observation of what's happening there is they're going through a grieving process while simultaneously being ecstatic about the fact that there's so much fullness in their life. They're meeting new friends. They're living in a new place. They're exploring a town they haven't lived in before. So this richness, along with the idea that they're all in the last years of their lives, have come crashing together in this very interesting soup. And for a lot of those folks, for the first 3 months, I think most of them were just like, I have no idea what's going on here. But I'm angry and I'm sad and I'm happy and I'm scared and I want somebody to tell me to do, but don't you dare tell me what to do. So all of these emotions started arising for many of the residents that moved there. And I think for most of them, they have had in their lives a desire to practice. They have practiced. Most of them have not lived in community. So they get a chance now to form a community of practitioners and to talk to each other about this, which they did. Not all of them, but many of them sought out new friends and started discussing their experience. And realizing that they were having these emotions, but that might not be the real thing that was going on. So they might be angry that their electrical system or the heating system's not working very well. And that's real. But underneath that, the question was, so what's really going on? So in response to that, I think I've been thinking about what's really going on. And I think it's a great question because what's really going on for me will never, ever be what's really going on for you or you or you. And before I started practicing, I think my experience often was, if that person just would listen to what I'm saying, my life would be better. And theirs would too. And I believed that. And I think that's the experience of a lot of us. We believe that our experience is shared by everybody in the world. And if we all did the same thing, my way, things would be sorted out just like that. So I came to practice and I came to Tassajara first. I came to Campo Abbey first. But I came to Tassajara working in the kitchen, and I started realizing that my experience of the world was not necessarily the same experience of the person who was cutting carrots beside me. I remember having this conversation with this young lad, and he said, you know, in my family, we ate in front of the TV off paper plates every meal. And that stopped my mind because I grew up in a family where we sat down to dinner. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She made the meal or had some kind of terrible help from children. And we would sit down together, and I don't know if we talked about the day so much. I don't remember. But we would have this sit-down meal, not in front of a TV. So when this young lad said this to me, I was like, what would that be like? And I actually was quite curious about that. And I think at that time my mind was soft enough to not think, well, that is awful. That must have been terrible. I think my mind at that point was more like, wow, that is not a shared experience between us. There is no overlap between what my dinner experience was in the family. No apparent overlap. I think the TV is a complicating factor because it's talking at you. And so it distracts the energy of the room. Whereas I think at our dinner table, maybe it was the food that distracted our energy or something. So I think that talking about talking with other people in a community of practitioners allowed, and I've used this word a couple times already, it allowed my mind to soften to the idea that people have other experience, which is neither good nor bad. It's neither positive experience necessarily, it's not negative experience necessarily, it is their reality. And so that opened up questions in my mind about how to relate with the idea and the reality, I'm using this word a lot, of other people's not shared experience with mine. And I think what I have come to is the curiosity around that is the value. Landing on an answer isn't necessarily what's important. It's working towards, and I don't know how else to describe this, but it's like having the shape of a mind that allows for curiosity rather than fixed ideas or fixed answers or judgment. And I was reading this week in a book of Suzuki Roshi's talks called Not Always So. It's a collection of Suzuki Roshi's talks by Edward S.B. Brown. And there's a talk that was entitled, probably by Edward, Every Day Life is Like a Movie. And this is one of these experiences I had where I've seen that before, I've heard this before, and it had a very different impression on me in the context of reality and in the context of Zen practice and sitting practice, because everything that goes on, all phenomena, is happening to us all the time. All the sensory input, all our thinking. It is the mind's job, I believe, to produce thoughts. The mind doesn't stop producing thoughts. I think the point of practice is to understand that that's like the movie, the production of thoughts. And it's going to happen. And then what we are examining, what I'm examining, is one movie happening at once, or are 7 movies showing for me at the same time? And if there are 7 movies showing at the same time, I can't make sense of anything. So through practice, through sitting, it's this experience of you see less, or you get involved in less input. It's not that it's not happening, because it's happening. It's that we're not taken away by the fact that it's all happening. So our experience becomes more precise, slower. We don't have to follow thoughts. It's like taking a very untrained dog for a walk. So we've all seen that. We've all been standing somewhere. Yesterday I was at the market and there was this woman that had this small dog. And that small dog was all over my partner, Erin. And the woman was like, oh, she really likes people. And everybody else was kind of backing up going, whoa, because this dog was just kind of out of control. That's the mind that is coming for the first time to Zazen. It is leading you on the walk of your life. And everybody else is going, whoa, watch that happen. And then over time, the dog slows down. It starts trusting. It starts healing. Then there are those super dogs that, like they dance with people, or they do obstacle courses. I think that is a possibility for us if we stick with this idea that the mind is powerful and we have confidence in our mind to be led rather than it not even leading, but like taking us for a run or on a wild ride. So reality is an experience of precision. Suzuki Roshi also had this phrase called things as it is. Doesn't make sense in English. It's not a grammatically correct sentence. But things, I imagine, when I think about that statement, are phenomena. It's a plural idea. It's all of the senses collecting information, my mind generating thoughts, the experience of the Zendo, the experience of all of you sitting in here, the smells that are wafting towards me, the light as it's changing. This is plural phenomena. As it is a singular idea. So he's combining this idea of plurality with singularity and this movement from multitudes to the mind being able to focus on one thing. And it's not that the multitudes are a bad thing and that the singularity is a better thing. It's that there is tension between those two ideas. And because of that tension, there is this wonderful life we have. So this is what I've been thinking about. And one of the things I appreciate about Suzuki Roshi and the teachings that he presented for us is that he played with language in a certain way that forced us to think about something that doesn't come easy to us. And if we had these direct answers, we wouldn't be able to understand. I think it's about practice. This is why it's called practice. It's like this slow movement of exploration, of curiosity. Involving patience, diligence, many concepts. And this is difficult in our culture because as we go to school, or this was my experience in school, the most important thing when I was going to school is having the right answer. One answer, the right one. Buddhism doesn't work that way, from what I can tell. And partly it doesn't work that way is because the way I look at the world, the way I experience the world is completely different than the way that Jiryu experiences the world. And so my right answer will never, ever be his right answer. And so how does that work? How do we get to right? What does that even mean? So again, a question. And I don't have an answer for that. And if I did, I wouldn't want you to listen to it or believe in it. Because if it was right for me, chances are it wouldn't be right for you. We come with our experiences. We come with our upbringing. We come with our karma. We come with our attachments. Those are individual. So we practice with all those things. And we think about where it brings us, how it shapes us, what we value. And through that understanding, we can accept, I think we grow to accept ourselves. Because I think, again, in our culture, accepting ourselves is not straightforward. For many of us, it's a lifetime's effort in order to accept who we are and be supportive of ourselves. So, examining reality takes many forms, many paths, many years. My sister works with a woman, and my sister works with many women, many people. She's a nurse practitioner, and she does kind of home care for people who are in various stages of dementia. This will come up at Enzo Village, and it will come up at Enzo Verde. It might be coming up in your lives. And there's this idea that at early stages of dementia, people like to be reminded of what day it is, what time it is, where they're living, they like it's good to orient people because they want that information. Then at a later stage, that information is not helpful to them. And it may be helpful for us because we aren't thinking about who they are any longer. We're thinking about who they were to us. So what is their reality? It isn't that it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon necessarily. It's not that it's Tuesday. It might be that they're 5 and they miss their mother. So that's an interesting experience to be working with people like that. And we think that's really different than who we are. But I'm not sure that's so different. Because sometimes it's extremely important for us to know it's Sunday at 10 o'clock because I needed to get here. But other times, there are other things that are much more important. And that recedes to the background. So then, what's the reality? It sounds like it's a static thing. I think it's an ever-changing thing. And that's what makes it terribly interesting. So I believe that practice, sitting zazen, allows us to slow down and pinpoint moments. There's this common way of thinking about one's experience when one first starts sitting, that you experience your mind like a waterfall of thoughts. And most people are astounded at how many thoughts are generated, or it can almost feel after sitting, particularly in sesshin, against facing a wall, that when you leave a period of zazen, you've just watched a full-blown movie because the mind is so busy. And then if one continues on the path of practice, often one's experience is that the volume of thoughts doesn't distract us as much. I don't know if they lessen. I think they're not as distracting. So we don't follow these threads all the time. And I think that is very relieving. I think in our culture, slowing down is very relieving. And not so supported. So while those of us who practice value this, there's a pretty intense pull from outside of this enclave to be busier, do more, do it all, right? I think about maybe the 80s, when there was this big discovery about how women could do it all, have a family, have a full-time job, take care of parents, make all the food, do all the cleaning. They could do it all. Yeah, well, hard to get behind that. So I value the idea that I can, without judgment, slow down. I value the idea right now that aging isn't something to be afraid of or shunned or something like that. I think our culture likes people to be about 23 and really buff. And I think there's a lot of mourning that goes on to be 63 and not as buff. So I think paying attention to body, paying attention to messages, both self-created and externally created, help with reality. Examining me examining what I value and what I support. In Tibetan practice, they like lists, Tibetans. Makes things easy. And they talk about 3 kinds of confidence. And they are: be decisive, know what is, see clearly. Very easy. It's another one of these like reality. Be decisive, know what is, see clearly. And I heard about those 24 years ago, those things. They've stuck with me ever since. Because I think they do give, those 3 things do give us confidence. If we can see something clearly, if we can know what it is, and if we can be decisive, I think that builds our confidence. It allows us to see reality. And I think getting to a point where we feel confident is practice. Being steadfast, relying on Sangha, relying on the Dharma, relying on the Buddha as a teacher. These things give us confidence. And that, I believe, allows us to better understand who we are and what is important to us. How to get there, how to have confidence, it's practice. It's keeping things in the front of your mind, valuing. I'm always impressed by people that can sit up here and read a lecture and be very decisive and informative. I kind of like that. And that has never been my way. I have a hard time sitting up here being decisive. But what I do invite you to do with me is believe that questions are important and answers less so. And that thinking about what is real for you and then having forbearance for that. And at the same time, holding the belief that other people will have a different experience and having forbearance for that is important. And I believe that if we could all move in that direction, things would be easier for us. Conversation would be richer. Politics would be different. I think there'd be more sharing. I think that's a good place to ask if anybody has a question, since questions are so great. Please. Oh, there she goes.
Very close to your mouth. Well, I'm a member of Ancient Dragon Zen Gate Sangha from Chicago. We've been visiting this
Welcome.
week, and we've been very happy to be here. And one of the things that my Sangha members commented on is the strength of this community as an intergenerational one. And I was wondering, for Enso Verde, and, we talk about multiple perspectives. The perspectives of generations are very important, especially now when we're dealing with some people who are digital natives, some people who aren't, et cetera. And I was shocked to find out that, there's some people now that haven't learned to write cursive. And, that was like a revelation to me. And so I was wondering at Enso Verde and so in Sonoma, what are you doing to I mean, I have relatives, okay, that are in continuing care communities, and one of the things that's been depressing about them to me is, everybody 85 plus. So, like, what are you doing for that intergenerational contact in those communities?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I think that's one of the grieving components, or one of the components of grieving for the many of the seniors that move there, because they've moved from a house they've had for 40 years, where they may have had neighbors or more intergenerational contact, to this place where it is a lot of seniors. A lot of the staff is younger. So that's one component. However, it's a relatively young community. So the average age, I think, is 76. People are still bombing around. Um, and so there will be, the intention is, it's still very new, so people are settling in, but the idea of volunteerism is very strong. So in other communities of this type, there's going into schools and teaching people to read and having people come um, to help, having younger people come and volunteer with the older people. So I think there will be that effort to have contact within Healdsburg, and then also in Simi Valley, the same thing. So I think that the residents know that this is very important. And there's experience. I remember my father saying, I don't look at myself in the mirror anymore, because what I see is a very old man, and what I feel like I'm about 37. So that for him, it was just like, it doesn't match anymore. I can't deal with that. So I bet a lot of the people at Enso Village feel like they're about 22, ready to like protest something, honestly. And so they feel they feel younger than their bodies are. That's part of the tension, is because they feel younger than what their body messages are letting them know. So aging is, watching aging, experiencing aging, it's a full-time, it could be a full-time job. So what I'm saying to you is I believe they understand that the intergenerational component is very important. However, for many of them, the work that they are engaged in right now is facing their own aging and talking to one another about that. And that is work, and that is practice, and it's inspiring. So I don't think that exactly relieves the question that you're asking. However, it is inspiring to watch them consciously talk about and feel into the process of aging. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for talking about or asking the question and what reality is. You mentioned how it's like having one movie and then having multiple movies, and maybe not being distracted by all the movies and just focusing on the one. How do we do that? That's my question.
Yeah. So in this essay that Suzuki Roshi wrote, what he said was Zazen takes you to no movies. I'm like, wow, that might be Suzuki Roshi's experience, that Zazen takes him to no movies. And I've sat in sesshin where it's like a movie. I can't believe that 40 minutes just went by because I was just experiencing my whole life and it was on a wall. It's that vivid. So what does that tell me? It could tell me that I'm a terrible sitter, or it could tell me that my mind is doing this thing. And what I keep reading is that, so the mind is generating thoughts, and the mind might be saying lunchtime, 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 lunchtime. And I could say, thank you. I know lunch is coming up, but I'm not going to think about what they're serving. Go back to sitting. So it's that I think reduces the number of movies, because these ideas pop up and the effort can be not following each of those trains of thought. And I think it's really it's getting to the point where we believe that generally our experience is really muddled by the fact that we're seeing 27 movies on the screen right now. And how confusing that is. So understanding and believing that the confusion is part of our experience helps to then wade through the confusion. So it's not trying to go in there and do something, as opposed to Michelle Obama's speech. This is like observe, and then things start changing. So I was impressed by Michelle Obama's speech, and with the do something. However, my experience is that when we try to do something in meditation, it always goes bad. It's the taking away that gets us somewhere. The reduction, the minimizing. So narrowing the focus, I think. So how do we do that? Maybe a thing I can point to is believing that there are multiple movies, believing that there is confusion because of the multiple movies, and then start understanding what the movies are. Is it a message from childhood? Is it a message that you don't like your boss? Is it a message that your stomach is hungry? So it's pulling those threads of what all of those messages are and understanding, so you can kind of let them go. I think that's helpful. Maybe it's helpful. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the Dharma talk.
You're very welcome.
My question is also about intergenerational community.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really appreciated what you said about this interesting soup of the seniors coming to their final home and feeling excitement to be alive, and also feeling grief that this is it. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned too that there's multiple realities for everybody, and that advice is generally the wrong way forward. But considering an intergenerational Sangha, how then do younger people support, or what lessons are there from Zazen that can inform how those around the seniors can be present for that reality, or kind of supportive as they go through that interesting soup?
I think my experience leads me to believe that listening is very helpful. So learning to listen, both from the older people and the younger people. So sometimes I think older people think, I've lived a good life. I know what things are happening. I've got it worked out. And so I know, and I'm going to tell you. I don't think that's very helpful. And then sometimes for younger people, they're like, well, I don't have to listen to that old fart because that's in the past, you know. So I think the only way sanghas can survive is by being intergenerational. And the only way that happens is if everybody is valuing everybody. And I think that's, again, it sounds like it should be easy, right? But it's not that easy. Does that kind of get it, your question?
I think so.
Thank you. Oh, get this one first.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for your talk. I was just reflecting on two ideas. They are maybe a question, and these ideas are sort of questioning some
Yes.
things in the talk. I mean, I'm currently the sole caregiver in my family for my 91-year-old mother, but I'd like to offer that none of these places were her final place because we had to move like 5 times.
Mm.
And, you know, our system is very broken. And the last thing was an eviction of disabled seniors by the city of San Francisco to build a drug rehab place. And they got rid of all the disabled seniors. So I had 21 days to find a home for my mom. So this struggle is not, I feel like there's different struggles that are part of this work that you're talking about. And I love the idea that more young people be involved. It's very painful for me that my one and only daughter, who's 24, isn't involved at all and chose to move away, literally MIA, missing in action in Minneapolis. So, I mean, you know, this is not a rosy picture, and I'm living a not very rosy movie there. So it's just a question about that. Like, it's not so, what you portray, the 70-year-olds who are active and who want to protest, this is not everyone's reality. So I want to put that out as part of the questioning of this, how we help people. You know, it gets pretty dire.
Yes.
The second part is that I don't know that movies are so bad. I make movies, so I was thinking about what you're doing, and sometimes it's healthy to take all this stimulus and actually put it into art and creativity, you know, because I agree, it can be very disruptive in your life. But I'd like you to talk more about the positive quality of movies as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I acknowledge and understand as much as I can the difficulty with your mother and having to move around and the lack of understanding and the brokenness of the system. I think it's safe to say that North American culture in particular does not value age, seniors, or their experience. And I also think that 24-year-olds are, this was me, extremely self-involved, and that I was busy trying to figure out my own life and my own psyche, and I didn't have time or energy to think about anybody else. So I understand that you're experiencing a painful situation, both from older and younger, and it's probably squeezing you. Yes. So again, in this essay from Suzuki Roshi about your life as a movie, he said, you should really be able to enjoy the movie. He said, because it's a movie. So we go to movies. We go to a movie theater, and we think, wow, this is so fantastic. We can be crying, we can be laughing, we can be really angry, we can go to a scary movie and be totally freaked out. And although we're experiencing the movie and having the emotional response of the movie, in the back of our mind, there is this, it's like, it's a movie. So he's like, enjoy the movie. And just as he's using that analogy in that, that about a movie, he's saying we should have the same experience with our life because it's a movie, it's not reality. It's happening. So the characters change, our experience changes. It's a movie. That's harder for me to understand, although I wrestle with that. I had another teacher that said, with our thoughts, we create our world. So if you think about that, with our thoughts, we create, or I create my world. It means that I'm creating my movie. And because I'm creating the movie, it's better to enjoy it. You know, so the movie analogy, I think, is very interesting. And it's not exactly straightforward. So thank you for pointing that out, and enjoy the movie. We do have time for one more.
Hello, thank
Hello.
you so much for your talk. I'm probably the youngest person here. I'm often the youngest person at any talk. Oh, yes, sorry. But my question, I guess, then, as a very young person, is I have my own experience and my own reality that is often then dismissed because I'm very young. Well, not very young, I'm 21, but
Just drinking.
but my point being, it's lovely to hear you be able to hear other people's experiences and really just like accept it and think about that and know that every person's experience is very different, because that's been my experience in my life. But I find that most people aren't like that. And I guess my question then is, how do you handle it as a person who's saying, this is my experience, and having other people not understand that? And how do you want that person to understand you, but know they're not going to be able to, and like, I guess, accept that, you know, and where do you go from there?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think this is, for me anywhere, where these ideas of the three kinds of confidence come in. Because I think if you know what's going on, if you know your reality, then as part of that reality, you know this older person is going to be dismissive. It's fine, because it doesn't shatter your confidence. Frustrating, yes. Earth-shattering, no. Disappointing. So I think it's, in my world experience, being disappointed is unpleasant, but to have my world torn apart is much worse. So understanding and being confident about who I am, doing the exploration so I know, has allowed me to notice that I will be dismissed by an older white man on a construction site. I was a carpenter for 20 years, and I was often on a job site as the only woman and 300 men. Did they listen to me? Never. Did I know what I was doing? I had to, because I would have lost my job had I not, because I was so obviously not part of the group. So I think when you're younger, it's the same kind of experience. Do you need to know what you're talking about? Yes. Does that involve a lot of work? Yes. Are you prepared to do the work? Probably. Do the work. Keep doing the work. You'll be great. Absolutely. Well, I'm not the boss. Is there?
Quote, okay, I appreciate what you said about different realities. I am dealing with a difficult person who is emotionally harming me and trying to turn my sons against me. I am brokenhearted and trying to get him to see that he is acting in a harmful way. He is acting like a victim and not taking ownership for his actions. How do I protect my sons and my own heart and set boundaries without losing my sons and my own center?
That's a very painful situation. I don't, so the question is phrased in such a way, there was a part of the question where you said, how do I get him to understand? We cannot get other people to do anything. In my experience, the only thing we can do is change ourselves. And so I believe that in this very painful, difficult situation, the only thing you can do is think about what is best for you and then act accordingly. And it's, that is not an easy prescription. So my heart opens to you. Thank you all very much for supporting me to give this talk.